Thank you, Captain Voigt, for the wonderful introduction. Can anybody hear me? Good?
Good.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for inviting me here today to this great Memorial Day gathering. As I was coming into the park, I couldn't help but notice the banners depicting our local service members. It's truly an honor to be in a place that recognizes our Berks County veterans. It's wonderful. But we have to ask the question, why are we here today? Why are we here today? It's a question that most individuals already know the answer to, but some do not. We are here for one purpose, and one purpose only: to remember the military service members that made the ultimate sacrifice and gave their lives for our great nation. When I was first asked to speak here today, Captain Voigt told me the topic would be what Memorial Day means to me. I didn't really have to think too hard, and many things came to mind. I took time to reflect and remembered several experiences that I would like to share with you all. So here it is, what Memorial Day means to me. When I enlisted in the Marine Corps at age 17, I had just started my senior year of high school. Things were heating up in the Persian Gulf with Iraq, which at the time was being governed by Saddam Hussein. Despite that occurring, I still raised my right hand, and I took that oath that everyone recites when enlisting in the military, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Taking that oath, I will never forget. When I was just a kid, I celebrated Memorial Day for what would have been 17 years at the time. But I truly did not understand what Memorial Day was, despite my father, Tony Souders, being a U.S. Navy veteran who served during the Korean War. I thought Memorial Day was just another holiday off school where my dad would cut the grass nicely, put out some American flags, and we would invite people over to have some burgers, hot dogs, and a few beers. Obviously, I wasn't having any few beers. At least that anyone knew about. Don't tell Dad. But I truly never knew what Memorial Day meant, even after enlisting. How crazy is that, right? Today, 35 years later, I realize that some people don't know what this solemn day represents. A close friend of mine still thanks me for my service on this very day. I'm still alive and breathing. I think I may have corrected him once or twice over the years, but now I just say thank you and we move on. So his kindness and recognition is something that I will never forget. Another experience I can recall was when I attended a funeral at Arlington National Cemetery for a fellow Marine, Chief Warrant Officer Andrew Arnold, who was killed in Iraq. I remember that day like it was yesterday. The spring of 2003, blossoms on the trees near the chapel at Arlington, where so many of our nation's heroes are buried. Not only was the cemetery and surrounding area memorable, so was the butt chewing that I got from my first sergeant for showing up out of uniform. I'll explain. I had just gotten promoted to the rank of staff sergeant days prior to the funeral and did not have staff sergeant chevrons on my dress blues. I had sergeant chevrons. Nor was I wearing the white trousers, which were part of the required summer blue dress uniform for staff non-commissioned officers, a group that I now belong to after recently getting promoted just days prior. Additionally, my collar was quite tight, and as I may have gained a few pounds since I last wore that uniform. My first sergeant saw me, and in true first sergeant demeanor, called me over to him and proceeded to identify my uniform deficiencies. He asked why I didn't have chevrons sewn on, why I wasn't wearing white trousers. And then, with his teeth clenched, he quietly but angrily uttered that my collar was so tight that my head looked like a giant tomato that was about to explode. True story. Trying to keep my composure, I attempted to give him a reason for the uniform issues, but he wasn't having it. He wasn't hearing it. And he sent me on my way back to formation. And that I will never forget. Never. The funeral service proceeded, and eventually Chief Warrant Officer Arnold's flag-draped casket was reverently carried out of the chapel and placed onto a horse-drawn caisson, or carriage, if you will. The caisson then started its way to Andy's gravesite, being pulled by a team of horses. You could hear a pin drop. No one was talking. There was no chatter, no laughter, no cadence, only silence. The only sound you heard was the clip-clop of the horses' hooves hitting the deck as we traveled through the sacred grounds, passing by many of the 430,000 white grave markers at Arlington. We arrived at the gravesite where Andy was peacefully laid to rest with full military honors. The American flag was removed from Andy's casket, meticulously folded and presented to his wife, Lisa. The 7-man rifle detail fired 3 volleys of shots, known as the 21-gun salute. A soldier from the old guard with a trumpet then played that unmistakable song which you will hear here today, Taps. Tears fell. It was a very humbling moment for which I was truly honored to be in attendance. One that I will never forget. Let us recognize the many other service members that gave their lives for our great nation. These heroes we honor today came from all walks of life. From every corner of this vast land, they were sons and daughters, husbands and wives, fathers and mothers. They were ordinary people who answered the extraordinary call to serve their country. Heroes from World War II named Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, Sergeant Michael Strank, Corporal Harlan Block, and PFC, Private First Class, Franklin Sousley, all killed in action on Iwo Jima. The latter 3 assisted with the U.S. flag raising there on Mount Suribachi. Everybody's seen that iconic photograph representing the Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Darwin Judge, Corporal Charles McMahon, the last 2 servicemen to die in Vietnam. Also, Berks County native Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Engstadt, whose memorial service I recently attended. Those men are just a few who gave the last full measure of devotion. It's the reason we set aside one day each year, Memorial Day, to remember the more than 1.1 million men and women who fought and died in places like Gettysburg, Iwo Jima, Khe Sanh, Fallujah, Kandahar, and most recently during current operations in the Middle East. On this day, we must remember that Memorial Day is not simply about a long weekend or backyard barbecues or cutting the grass nicely. It is a time for reflection and remembrance. It is an occasion to honor those who left behind grieving families, who kissed loved ones goodbye, not knowing if it would be the last time. And for them, we must never forget. Since 2001, we deployed our precious sons and daughters in a global war on terror. Since that time, more than 7,000 of our brave soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines gave the last full measure of devotion. And while we honor and remember their sacrifices today, I must also recognize another group of heroes that made it home from various conflicts or periods of service, but lost to the silent battle within. We collectively ignore the carnage of our service members who have carried those wars back home with them. Since that same time, 2001, more than 150,000 U.S. troops have been lost to the silent war of suicide. That's more than the combat deaths of World War I, Korea, Vietnam Wars combined. Let that sink in. 150,000 dead by their own hands, an estimated average of 22 per day. And if you do not believe this number, we need to look no further than in Berks County, right here, to see the impact of our silence. Veterans here in Berks County make up 4.5% of our population, or roughly 20,000 people. But in 2025, those same veterans comprise more than 26% of all suicides here in Berks. Absolutely unacceptable. And for them, we must never forget. So how do we remember our heroes? How do we do it? One simple way. One simple way. Fly the flag. Fly the flag. When you see our flag flying, remember those whose caskets with which it was draped. By proudly flying our beautiful red, white, and blue flag, you show everyone that you are a patriot. You recognize the cost of freedom, and you understand the sacrifices that were made so that we can live in a free society, that we can express ourselves openly, that we can enjoy the protections of the Bill of Rights, and that we can enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this great nation of ours. And for that, we must never, ever forget. And that is what Memorial Day means to me. Thank you. It has been my distinct honor and privilege to speak before you. God bless you. God bless our men and women in uniform. And God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Master Gunnery Sergeant Robert Souders. Amazing.